1891. At this point in time, everything was still drilled by hand, then blasted out with black powder. Now the method I'm getting ready to demonstrate for y'all is called single jacking. One miner would take his drill steel and he puts it in the heading like so. Every time he strikes this, he's going to turn it a little bit more, just clearing out the rock. Just like this here. Now each miner was given a total of 3 candles at the beginning of their shifts. So these guys are pretty fortunate, they now have a total of 6. Now if you're working by yourself doing that single jacking method, you only had the 3 candles. So once you got your hole colored, which means started, you blew your candle out and worked in total darkness. Now calcium carbide is going to sit in the bottom half here, while water sits in the top half, dripping down, creating a settling gas. Now this is much brighter and only uses 1/3 of the oxygen, so it's much better for underground mining. Now we started putting them on our hard hats. We called them hard-boiled hats like the 2 you see here. Now those weren't the best idea for several reasons. If you misplace your arm, you're going to severely burn your arm. If you got to shaking your head around too much, there is a slight possibility it could blow up on top of your head. If you look too close at your buddy, you're going to burn him. Sort of like what happened to this gentleman here. Now what he has in his hands there is known as the Jim Crow. Now the Jim Crow's been around for over 312 years and still cannot be touched by technology to this day. That is what we use to bend and straighten the tracks underground. We're going to lay that down first, blast our rock on top of it, and it's going to make it just a little bit easier to scoop the shovel underneath the rock to throw it into your 1-ton ore carts. Now Jack Dempsey was a heavyweight world champion boxer. He grew up right here in Victor, Colorado, 6 miles over this hill. Now when he became of age, he started to work down here in the mines as a hand mucker. Now he was fired from every single mine that he worked at due to the fact that he could not fill his quota. So then he went to boxing for an easier lifestyle. Now here we have our 1-ton ore cart. Now after you have shoveled all of your ore into this ore cart, you have to do a process known as hand tramming, which means you push it by hand from wherever you're at in the mine to the shaft to take it to the surface. Now do I have any volunteers today who would like to push this ore cart? Well, to make our jobs a little bit easier, we started to bring donkeys down here in the mines. Now one donkey can move 3 of these 1-ton ore carts completely full from any spot in the mine to the shaft with no problem. Now the downfall for these donkeys, once they were brought down here, they never seen the sunlight again. Eventually they all went blind due to the lack of light down here in the mines. In 1910, the liner column drill was released. Now this drill is going to drill a 6-foot hole in roughly 20 minutes. We're going to start out with our 2-foot drill steel there, go up to our 4-footer, and eventually up to the 6-footer there. Now this machine weighs 276 pounds, so it took 2 miners to adjust it when it came time to do so. One to hold it up and one to tighten these bolts back down. Now I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this one for y'all. Now we're going to stop using black powder and switch to nitroglycerin dynamite. Now nitroglycerin dynamite was a bad idea for just a few reasons. Number 1, it's very unstable. Number 2, it freezes at 57 degrees. It's about 52 degrees year round down here in the mines, which is where dynamite was kept. So now we got to take it up to the surface in what's known as a stick warmer, and that's what we have there. Now once you got it up to the surface, you place it next to a potbelly stove and heat it up to about 80-85 degrees. Bring it back down here and do a process known as rush loading, which means we load it into our 6-foot hole as fast as we possibly can. We do this with what's known as a tamping rod. Now as you're putting it into the hole, if you got too big of a hurry and hit it too hard, premature detonation. Never ended well for the 6 miners who were standing directly in front of this. So now we're going to have 2 advancements in technology. Both these advancements are still used in underground mining today. Let's go see those now. Denver 83 was released. 83 because it only weighs 83 pounds. Now one miner is going to drill a 6-foot hole in under 2 minutes with this drill. We're going to start and finish with our 6-foot drill still there. Now what allows us to do so is what's known as the jack leg. That's what this is. Now that has an air piston inside of it that's going to push itself into the heading as you're drilling. This way it can drill much faster. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this one for you now. Now all ANFO is fertilizer injected with number 2 diesel fuel. Highly explosive and comes in bags like that bag there. Now we have to spray it into the hole with what's known as a pure gun, and that's what we have right beneath it. Now as you spray it into the hole, you slowly feed it back out, causing a nice tight pack in our blasting pattern seen here. Now our center hole, this is just known as our relief hole. It's just for the expansion of the rock. Now your first blast to go off is your 4-hole burn. Second is your box. Third is your ribs and your knee highs. Now those are the only 2 blasts in this entire sequence that's going to go off at the same time. Our 4th blast is our back. Last but the most important, they're called the lifters, and they're down here on the floor. Now your lifters, they're drilled at a 30-degree angle, and they're going to shoot the rock off the heading, off the back, and onto the floor right about where y'all are standing. This way you can start to muck it up, and we can go ahead and start drilling it again. So we've been walking through our crosscuts. Now right here's where we hit our first gold vein. And so we didn't drift over too far before doing our process known as stoping, and that's where we go straight up. Now the higher up you go in a stope, the less stable the ribs become. You soon start doing a process known as honeycombing, which is this process here. So we leave these rock patches in between the ribs to create stability inside of the mine. So you blast your rock out from the top. 33 tons at once is going to come straight down and land on this rock bench. Then the machine known as the slusher, this one found here, is going to drag this rock over and drop it down the ore chute. Now the man at the bottom who opens and closes that ore chute door, he's going to fill up 33 ore. The white is that magnesium sulfate. Then we come over here to the red and black, which is rust. Originally it was iron until it oxidized. And our purple, that's actually over here on the bench or stope further upwards before all these air tools came in. We had to do a process known as underhand drilling. Now that's where we would take our drill steel and hold it above our heads like so. Then you would take your hammer and you would swing like this all day long for your entire 8-hour shift. Now you can be standing anywhere from where y'all are standing now, which is called the working level, all the way up to 780 feet above the working level. 1900 come along the first stoper drill. Now miners nicknamed this one the wiggle tail because they have to wiggle it back and forth just like so to keep it from getting stuck in the rock, due to the fact that it only hammered up and down. Now this drill was the very first discovery of silicosis of the lung. As you were running that drill, your attention was focused upward and you were breathing in all the dust that was falling down. Now that's what was causing the silicosis. You were given 15 years to live the day you started running this drill. The more you ran it, the shorter your lifespan became. So 10 years later, they decided to have a few advancements in the stoper drill. This was the Gortner Denver 93. 93 because it only weighs that 93 pounds. Now this one does spin and also has an air piston inside of it that's going to raise itself up, keeping constant pressure on the back as you're drilling. Now occasionally this drill steel would get stuck in the rock, torque would return to the machine, it would spin around, hit you in the stomach and the head, wherever it happened to be at. Now if you're standing on a plank 100 feet up, you're going to fall that 100 feet. 9 times out of 10 this drill came down and landed on top of you. Now there was a panic button on here, but it was rarely ever used. The reason why is because miners run it down here. If you want the panic button to work, you have to run it with at least one finger sitting on it. So for that, the wives of the miners have nicknamed this drill the Widowmaker. Now how we're going to get rid of the silicosis is with what's known as a jack tank, and that's what this is. Now we're going to fill this up with water and put compressed air on it. It's going to pump through the black hose, up through the drill steel, all the way to the drill bit, keeping the bit nice and cool and keeping the dust down there. You don't have to worry about the silicosis anymore. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this drill for y'all now. They alarmed for his entire 8-hour shift. He ate his food up there and he used the restroom up there. He uses the restroom in what's known as a honey bucket. It's just a 5-gallon pail. Now since he had to stay up there all day long, he had no way of getting tools if he needed them. This is when mines started hiring what's known as skippers. Male boys as young as 10 years old would work down here in the mines, and they would do whatever. Those mines plumbed air down into the mine. They put what's known as an air tugger in stopes that were over 500 feet. Now if the stope was still under 500 feet, they would use the kids because that was more cost efficient. So all the air tugger does is just pull your tools up like so. We're not using it, just rest right back down here at the bottom. Right-hand side, you're looking down the Black Diamond crosscut. Now the richest ore cart that ever came out of the Mollie Kathleen came out of this crosscut right here. Now something broke down here, it was fixed down here. Nothing went back up, that'd cost too much time and too much money. Now directly behind me here we have what's known as the Julian Davis drift. Now halfway through this drift to stop producing gold. They didn't know why, but they kept on drilling and blasting anyways until they hit the Black Diamond cross gold vein. And you can see this gold vein right over here if you look up. Now the nice shiny stuff you see up here when I shine my light on it, this is what's known as iron pyrite, otherwise known as fool's gold. Now if it looks like gold, it's fake. If it looks like silver, it's gold. There are a few exceptions to that rule of thumb. The first exception is that fluorite, which you can find again here. Let's start off with Robert Womack on the Cripple Creek side. Now he's the original discoverer for this entire gold rush. But before he started it, he walked this valley up here for 12 years straight. Even nicknamed it Poverty Gulch due to the fact that he could never find enough gold to start the gold rush. Now he finally figures out what he's looking for in October of 1890 and sinks his shaft. Well, after he got his mine up and running, he went out to celebrate one night and had a little bit too much to drink. He ends up selling his entire operation for $500 and a fifth of whiskey. Now her and her husband came up to Cripple Creek to visit their son who was working as a claim surveyor at the time. Now while they were up here, they were walking this valley one day and they both seen a herd of elk. Well, they had never seen elk before, so this excited them and they followed them until they got tired and sat down on that dirt mound, at which point Mollie found samples A and G in the display case at her feet. Now sample A is quartz, which is another gold vein indicator. G has free gold outcropping on it. Now when she found these two, she knew she had gold and this is where she wanted to stake her claim. Now this is also our half-ton ore bucket, so it'll hold a half-ton of rock. Now we're going to bring this up, dump it with what's known as an apron into our 1-ton ore cart. Now this process is known as winzing. And in order for me to demonstrate this machine for you, I need to make sure everybody's standing on that side of this metal grate. Now before we actually had a bell system in place, we had right around 500 mines in this area, and they all ran their own set of bells. So this would become a huge problem. One miner quit one job, he'd go to work for the next guy, come in and ring the bells he already knew, seriously injured somebody, if not killed them. Now this guy's brother died in one of those mining accidents. His name is J.W. Stonehouse. Now when he first came up with this sign, it only took a few weeks to get accepted in this district. Within a year, it was accepted by Colorado. 12 years later, it's accepted nationwide here in America. Now if we go anywhere in the entire world, this is the system that they use to travel up and down vertical shafts. So to bring us down here, I ring a 2-5-3-2. 2-5 for the 10th level, 3 for mid on run slow, and then 2 to lower us straight down. Now this is what it sounded like for the hoistman when that system rang. So he knows where to take us at in the mines. We have any questions before we go back to the surface?